hope everyone's doing well. Welcome back to another weekly outlook. So cool. If you guys remember last week, we discussed, the beginning of a new monthly candle and what that could, possibly mean for us, how it would shape up things. It's always a good sort of, area, I would say, to like reset as you approach the end of a month and the new month is coming. It's a couple of days usually where I would say bias can be a little bit ambiguous. You might have a direction, but usually where you might be struggling is, where's my manipulation going? Where's the higher, the lower the month possibly going to get placed? And that's essentially where we are right now, right? And the reason it's like that, right, of course, we can talk about, this range that we have for price over here. You can even, really and truly, you can even drag it to here. And why would we drag it to here? Because, not all the way there actually, sorry. Right here. So in this scenario, I wouldn't expect the previous monthly candles high to go, right? And essentially that works out being around the same high anyways, but what can we expect from this range? What do we want to see? If we come to the weekly time frame, what we see is we had a large weekly fair value up, price tapped into this, and this is why it may be confusing for some people. Now it's like, are we going to get the big retracement here? Are we going to go into, this premium / equilibrium? Or is this the weekly high fed and we're heading lower? Now, me personally, I think both scenarios are sort of on the cards here. I think from the way the previous week has closed, I would regard this all still as a bit of a consolidation. And therefore, to me, the sort of ideal scenario is that we still have a manipulation to see. And if we are going to manipulate, then the only direction I would expect that in is this way. So the sort of scenario that I'm looking for on the DXY for expansion this month is possibly, if the following week opens, possibly move higher, early move into this. Let's just something like that there. Bit of displacement. Like that, something along those lines. I'm not expecting anything crazy going into this premium, right? I expect price to respect this area around here, around the start of the OTE. But this is the sort of thing I would be looking for, right? Accumulation, manipulate here into the premium, and then distribution this way. Once more, if you come out to the monthly time frame, look at that. As we can see, if I had to pick a bias for this candle, there's no way I'm picking bullish bias. I would expect this candle to continue large move down for the time being, unless you have some sort of crazy fundamental shift coming from tariffs or whatever it may be to make us think otherwise. Cool. Let's get that back on there just for reference. We spoke about the bond yields as well. Again, every pair we're going to look at now, we're going to be looking at the monthly candle. What do we expect? And it's easy to go off of the last monthly candle, but not in the monthly candles like this. There's no bias, if I'm being honest, to be sort of, taken from that candle. When a candle has wick so hard both ways and then just close in the middle, it makes things very difficult. Now, on the lower time frames, the bias that we had in the short term was that price had built a range around the equilibrium, and we can see price retrace into this range, right, which it did. And if we get here, then the likelihood is we head back to the highs, and then from there possibly lower again, right? So that's the sort of thing we're looking at. Is again, it's if the bond yields are moving up at the same time as the DXY, that makes it a low resistance liquidity run, which is great. It means it's better conditions. But this being in a consolidation, then if it stays sideways or it's going opposing directions, there's not much you can do about it, right? So in the short term, the expectation is that we will most likely from here run towards this high. Once this high is run out, then I would possibly be waiting for another discount retracement. I wouldn't really expect price all the way to the highs, probably not even this high for the time being, right? But it's just something you'll have to monitor. It's not great at the moment, if I'm being honest. News events for this week quickly. So on the Monday is a GBP bank holiday, right, which most of my UK viewers will know anyways. We have a red folder for the USD, watch out for, right? Not much going on the Tuesday for us. On the Wednesday, this is the big one, right? Biggest one of the week and to kick off the month, I would say. FOMC. Similar on the Thursday for the pound. So a big one to watch for monetary policy. Unemployment claims for the dollar. And then again on the Friday, not much going on. right? So very sort of concentrated news events. Wednesday is the biggest and the main mover. Everybody wants to see what the Fed is going to be doing. Are they cutting? Are we keeping the rates? Are we hiking? And I think until we see that, there's a good likelihood we don't get any real expansion. Maybe what would be great is if up until the build up of that news event, if DXY can make its way over here and then FOMC comes and they, I wouldn't say they're going to cut, but let's just say the two most likely things that will happen is either they cut or they keep the rates, and the likelihood is DXY will react off of that and dump. Because most likely that will be priced in already, right? If they cut, of course, it's going to dump hard, right? And even if they keep the rates as is, the likelihood is we start to move down, maybe not as aggressively, of course. Cool. Or GBP, that monthly first. Again, makes it quite difficult. Big wick, large candle turned around, but not something that looks necessarily bearish, right? Where is price going? Now, you see with things like this, very similar to the dollar, that news event that's coming this week, I would expect to make things very, very clear, right? Gives a good direction on this pair. For the time being, the area that I would watch is a run on this low. While we're waiting for a run on this low, look at this discount fair value gap. Price can hit into this. If price can hit into this, I think technically we may already be in the discount. Yep, we are. But this is what I would consider the sort of first good discount array. Price can tap into this, then we can start talking about move back up to the highs. If that's where your GBP wants to go, I'll definitely be paying attention to that GBP news this week. I think it will dictate the bias, right? Overall, right, if let's say we're bearish on the dollar, which we are eventually, we expect it to turn around, then it's very important we have that sort of high time frame directional bias for this as well. Very similarly between the pairs, if you can dictate, the likelihood of Euro USD having a sort of better monthly candle versus a better, versus GU, makes things a little easier, right? And why am I saying that? Essentially what I'm getting at here, to simplify that, is look, we have this nice range. Let's just say price does what we ideally want. It comes here, taps this discount array, displaces higher. Now, it's obvious it's going to run back to the higher sort of thing. That means you're bullish on the Euro USD. If Euro GBP is, bullish, that means the Euro is getting stronger. And let's assume now that the monthly expansion has kicked on here. It's kicked on the DXY as well. You're bearish. That would make for Euro USD to be the better long on average across the month. Doesn't mean it will apply every single day. Of course, there's going to be days where it won't be better, but it just gives you a good insight into, you know what, I'm expecting this to fly. The likelihood is that if there's going to be some big impulse move, anything, I should probably be positioning Euro USD until the targets are hit, rather than, especially, that would apply a lot more to anyone that's doing any sort of swing trading. Oh. See. Very nice. Hold on, Markins. There. Cool. So coming from discount, big move up. New monthly candle has just opened. Last one closed quite strong. Now, particularly what I wanted to speak about, we said this last week, right? This candle has left a fair value gap, right? And what we wanted to see would this actually get left as a fair value gap. Right? Sounds a bit silly to say. Essentially what I'm getting at here is big displacement, right? If price does not wick into all of this candle, this body is left as a fair value gap. That is the scenario that we wanted. We wanted this week to continue higher, so that would set up for this candle to be a fair value gap that can potentially get swept into price to trade higher. And what we can see very nicely is price has done that perfectly and built an accumulation, right? Really and truly couldn't ask for any better. Because now what we can see is a classic case of A, M, D, and we have a very nice array over here, the weekly fair value gap for us to manipulate into. So the sort of thing that I'd be looking for in Bitcoin in the short term, that is quite, choppy and consolidated here, is the move lower. I want us to come and tag this sell side liquidity, right? We'll mark it out, which is going to lead into the previous weekly low and into the weekly fair value gap. Once that is tagged out, then we can start talking about, longs again. I don't think price will come and break that 100k mark before we do this. I think it's a very big psychological number. I think once this 100k flips, everyone's like, bullish, let's go back to the all-time high. You're not that far off anyways, 109k. So ideally, first we see the run here, sell side tag, then I'd be expecting the impulse move higher. But it's looking good though, generally. Again, we spoke about this last time as well, guys. When we see a monthly candle like this, I'm not expecting the next month to be bearish. There's just no way. The odds of that month dropping, even if I wanted to be bearish, I wouldn't expect this month to come and take the previous monthly low, right? The likelihood is that we don't see that same type of volatility. Let's just say price was bearish. We know for certain it would likely take a couple candles to play out, come and, hunt this low. But anyways, that's not the scenario going, right? The favored scenario for us, especially based on that close, is a higher S&P. We look on our weekly, looks like a classic case of accumulation, manipulation, took with bit of sell side, now displacement higher. The way these candles are forming, very nice. Order block, previous candle sweep, displacement, next candle continuation, buy side target in sight. Right, this looks at the next obvious high. Very flat, equal highs on daily. I think this is the next target. I believe I've seen the Nasdaq has something very similar as well. Go over to, oh yeah, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, so as you guys remember, right, we said market maker pattern. To me, I know it's not the cleanest. I know it's quite choppy, but this is bullish order flow, right? Retracement, respecting the lows, breaking the highs, up and down, working towards the buy side targets. I think this is a bullish chart. I think the flip has happened. That's also why I'm more confident in the DXY going down. It shows a level of market synchronicity. This is moving up. Bitcoin's moving up, right? I'd be expecting DXY to go down, right? Unless something comes to sort of shake up the market. Even if it does, I wouldn't expect like an instant dump. Most likely, you get a dump, then a bit of consolidation until things clear up. But to me, this chart is bullish for the time being, at least at a very minimum to the short-term target. But I do think S&P from here can run towards, all the way back to all-time high. Yeah, guys, that is it for the weekly outlook. As usual, any questions, anything I can help with, please just drop a message.